go directly to Khataza, please, at the head of Advocacy and Middle East Team for Christian Solidarity Worldwide, please.
Thank you. I'll be very brief. The
Love it.
war in Tigray, as Helen said at the opening, puts on open display the true nature of the Eritrean regime, exposing the severe violations Eritreans have suffered for 30 years under a shroud of enforced secrecy. Tigrayan civilians are being subjected to collective punishment, having been deemed guilty by association due to their shared ethnicity with TPLF leaders. Civilians and civilian structures, as we've heard, are being attacked in a manner indicating an intentional effort to dismantle a people group, its history, and its land. As we have heard, heritage sites and artifacts which are of significance to the three Abrahamic faiths in particular have not been spared. The Brutalities Monastery, El Najashi Mosque, the Cherkos Church in Zalambesa was bombed and looted. A museum of artifacts from the pre-Christian era has been damaged and looted. And medieval manuscripts dating back centuries have been burnt. The premises of the Catholic Church in Adigrat Diocese was used as a military command center, despite the presence of clergy and nuns, and the Adigrat Minor Seminary was damaged. As we've heard, clergy and worshippers are killed in large numbers. According to a 17th February statement from the employees of Mekelle Diocese and the administrators of 45 monasteries and churches, almost every monastery and religious school in Tigray has been bombed by drones or heavy weapons, and, quote, a lot of clergymen, deacons, congregation members of Sunday schools, religious students and children, especially those clergymen who were on religious service, were massacred like animals. Attacks on churches appear timed to coincide with religious festivals, seemingly to inflict maximum casualties. In one district, 78 priests were reportedly killed. Nuns are amongst the victims of a brutal campaign of mass rape as weapon of war. The indiscriminate bombing and destruction of ancient churches, mosques, and other religious institutions, and the extensive looting of irreplaceable historical artifacts and manuscripts appear to be part of a multifaceted campaign that includes cultural cleansing. Not only does this violate international humanitarian law, according to the ICC statute, intentionally directing attacks against religious establishments and historic monuments can also constitute a war crime. This wanton disregard for sites of religious and historical significance reflects the Eritrean government's own treatment of its religious and belief communities in its own country. War in Tigray threatens international peace and security because it threatens regional peace and security. To prosecute the war, Ethiopia withdrew and reassigned troops who were combating Somalia's al-Shabaab terrorist insurgency and peacekeepers who were in South Sudan. Somalia reportedly suffered significant casualties in Tigray and occasioning unprecedented protests, and was thrown into further disarray by its own president's subsequent efforts to hold power indefinitely. Tensions on the border are at dangerous levels between Ethiopia and Sudan, and there's friction around the Ethiopian dam. Meanwhile, ethnic insurgencies elsewhere in Ethiopia and the human and economic costs of the war threaten its stability and prosperity. The violence is intentional and systematic. A genocide may be unfolding before the eyes of an international community that is responding too tentatively. Eritrea and Ethiopia appear to react to each piecemeal intervention by intensifying the destruction of infrastructure and of civilians. The violence is now in its 217th day. We must ensure never again comes to mean never again for anybody. Since the Security Council is blocked by China and Russia, and the African Union is unable to prefer an African solution to this urgent African problem, an international coalition of the willing must come together to take coordinated action, including imposing an arms embargo on all identified warring partners, mandating and equipping a peacekeeping force, enforcing a no-fly zone over Tigray in view of continued bombings of civilians and suspected use of chemical substances, and taking forward the 2016 UN Commission of Inquiry recommendation, particularly that Eritrea's human rights situation be deemed a threat to international peace and security and referred to the ICC for prosecution, while imposing targeted sanctions on those deemed responsible for crimes against humanity and other gross violations both in Eritrea and Ethiopia. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Khataza, for that, and for giving us the big picture at the end of what needs to happen